In this episode, we explore the idea that the energy pattern of humanity is a substrate, something that holds us all.
So if the purpose of humanity is to care for everything, now I guess we're talking about the structure of caring. And what does that look like?
Yeah.
Or what does that even mean?
Yeah, because I guess for me, it's kind of the unseen structure of caring that's there. I think, and we'll probably talk about this later, we know it by its absence currently, but we should talk about it by its presence. It's what does the structure look like to care and look for humanity and the humans that are in it.
Yeah, and probably because none of us actually have experienced this, I can only sort of think about it in terms of like a tree or a plant, right? And, you know, a plant needs a place. It needs, and, you know, so does our structure need to create places for people, right? And and the plant to grow needs a soil of a certain type, and the trees in Australia, for instance, need a certain soil type, and they won't grow in. Some won't grow in clay soils, some won't grow in sand soils, and probably the same in England. Oak trees need a certain type of environment. They have a certain structure, and so we need to be providing a structure that really promotes the growth of human beings and humanity.
Yeah.
And we need to have this, well, we know singular ways of being don't work.
Yeah, that individualised.
And too many different ways of being. But that's within an individual. But
And we've also seen that trying to turn the collective into a big, massive thing doesn't work either.
No. And so it's like, and we've probably seen that more in businesses and that than communities in a way. And, so what would allow people to feel safe to have their true nature be allowed to be shown? And I was also reflecting on what you were talking about, in Aboriginal culture, having the elders. And so it's like we need people around us that can guide us, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, look, it's interesting, and I think, are we talking about what is needed moving forward? For me,
well, it's what's needed to allow our energy pattern to flourish and for humanity to grow and evolve. Because it feels like to me, and this comes from information, knowledge, that we've probably stagnated for close to 1,000 years or so, maybe more, maybe less. Little pockets have thrived.
Yes.
And at a human level, not a monetary level.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think if to me this is kind of interesting because it's like, if we go right, I love me a tree metaphor, as we all know. So in order for my roots to grow and grow in a healthy way so that they can stand firm in the soil and extract the minerals required from the soil and from the rocks, so that I have the nutrition, right, to even just be.
Yeah.
Right. And, we'll talk about doing in our next one.
Because this is about the substrate or something that holds us and gives us everything we need.
Yeah. And so,
to care and love.
as we know, because I love me a good tree metaphor, when I get to ask questions like this, I go straight to, how's the tree work? How's the forest work? How does woodlands work? And to me, I talked in the first one about organising, and the central organising principle for me would be around life, and how the patterns of life flow through us, and how we work with them, not against them, trying to cut against the grain. Because I think we've all experienced support structures that cut across the grain, and they're hard to use. So, we're all sniggering about that. But it's having...
Brin was making a few phone calls yesterday that were hard to use.
Right.
Yeah. But it's having life... It's not just about the ease of communication. It's about having life as the central organising principle. It's there to support life.
Yeah. So if we think about that, what do you know at your deepest knowing? What do you think is the central organising principle today for that?
Well, it's not life.
It's not life at all.
It's not
no one
life.
actually talks about life.
I feel like it could be something along the lines of actually safety and survival.
Okay.
Yeah.
For me, I'm just going to touch on a question that you asked earlier, and I can't remember the question, but what I jotted down was we're talking about creating nutritious environments or soil and things like that to grow. Again, relational. If it's children or young people, for me, I know there is a aspect of providing a safe space to be fully themselves, or to explore fully the potential of themselves.
Yeah.
And I think I know we don't provide spaces like that in current society for a child to fully explore all their potential, right?
And we don't do that for adults, and maybe we need to do it for adults as well.
However, my next thing is, so if we're looking at adults, what do we need to learn and grow and to be, all of those things? We actually have a process of unlearning first.
Okay.
Because none of us got through childhood.
Oh, currently,
right?
Yes. 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And so there is an element of unlearning.
Yeah.
To then, once we then grow, we still have to have an open mind or a growth mindset. That's probably the term that a lot of people resonate or know, that we have an open mind or a growth mindset in some capacity to then be able to let go and learn something new. Anything new, one that we learn or create space for our knowing to flow through, again requires that safe space for exploration of any potential to unfold. So what's happening for me is that there's a time loop happening back and forth, but how, and perhaps the processes for young people or children compared to the process for an adult seem to be different.
Although,
but not completely set in that, if you know what I mean.
Because technically or arbitrarily, where does childhood end and adult start, and where do we go from early adult, mid adult, older adult? So it's all an arc that all needs safe space to explore.
However, it's also that as well, depending on your traumas and your
given where we are in this current place and time.
But also,
100%.
it's about the responsibility, because we talked about responsibility in one of the other ones. And so, a child shouldn't be given too much responsibility. But then we have early adults, even senior adults, that take no responsibility for themselves. Right? And then there's also this, responsibility for the collective, right? And when you were talking, the growth mindset is an individual. What does the growth mindset look at, like at the whole humanitarian level? And that is what we actually need to provide structures. Because while us three and lots of other people have been able to do it individually, we're not doing it as a collective.
No.
And it's not the common way of being or living. And it's usually, as you pointed out earlier, that when something goes wrong in your life, that then you go, oh, it's not working now. I need to find a different way. Which, yes, but why do we want to wait until you're 41 or 42 for your life to implode on you and then have to start again?
Yes.
How do we provide the structure for all of that to happen? And to me, the safe places has to be there, the responsibility, and I don't want to say expectations, but there needs to be some sort of, I don't know, at this age, you need to be responsible for yourself, whatever age that is. And I suppose the other big one for me, and it's actually one of the, I suppose, universal principles of nature, not just humanity, but nature, is not taking any more than you need.
100%.
Right? And so some of our structures actually encourage us to take more than we need. And not just so that we have the cultural, I suppose, expectations, but we also get rewarded monetarily if we take more than we need.
Externally.
And it's external. And we talked about earlier that this is an internal process. And so, there's this mix up.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was jotting down, there is, for me, I see a very strong connection between balance in general.
Yeah.
And integration. And what I mean by that is when I spoke about, something around society, or not humanity, holding on to safety, right?
Yes.
Which, however, sometimes doesn't work for us over time.
No.
Over a critical mass of people or whatever that might be, or how it's showing up now. I feel like we have lost the ability to acknowledge and to see when things are out of balance and what that is, because we can have safety, which is a word, right, which we spoke about in the last conversation we had. Safety is, we're talking around holding safe spaces for people to explore and grow into their full potential, but also safety as a mechanism to keep us from growing. So it really can be a perspective thing, but we need to understand what that balance is and how. And for me.
So earlier you said, you thought maybe safety is the central organising principle.
In a destructive pattern is what I meant.
Yes, but at the moment that's what we're doing. But that safety is connected to fear.
Yes.
Whereas the safe places for us to explore and grow is actually to love.
Yes.
Which, as we know, is part of our humanity's energy pattern, is this deep love, because we're the ones, we're emotional, and the connections, you've talked often about the relationships, but the actual connection between people is that love that connects us to one another. And if we're, having our structures all built around safety and fear rather than love and caring, we're going to get totally different structures.
Exactly, and this is what I'm saying, but we're both coining them with the word safety,
Yes.
or some attachment to safety, or some connection to
Yeah.
safety. And you know, this whole conversation around humanity and communication, these are the conversations we need to have and unpack, that there are multiple meanings and or things, I don't know what it is yet, around two of the same.
Yeah, and even taking more than you need could be, you know, driven by a fear of not having enough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And this fear of not having enough drives us to take more than we
Yeah,
need.
absolutely.
But and then you talk about relational, and you know, we talked earlier about the impact on others. So if we're taking more than we need, somewhere
Where it's getting less than
they need.
Yeah.
And that ties back to your concept of the balance. Because yes, if this person here is taking more than they need, someone over here in another country or maybe down the street from you is getting less than they need. And so I suppose, you know, because humans, you know, as I said, when we were in the natural disaster, people just came and provided solutions and made things happen. And humans have this great ability to make things happen. But when we make things happen from a place of fear and safety as opposed to love and safety, they're two different things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because, you know, if we look at, you know, the concept of helicopter parenting,
Yeah.
right? I heard, and you know, once again, this is information, but there's young people who have never been left home alone at the age of 16, 17, 18. They've been supervised the whole time.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there seems to be a need for some good wisdom about what children actually need to grow. What do young adults actually need to take responsibility for their life? What do young families need, you know, and probably part of that is the bigger collective to help them nurture the next generation. What do, you know, people, once their kids have left home, what is their responsibility now? And if we look at it in terms of a collective, we don't have any of that.
No.
We
You
have
have no rites of passage, no.
Yeah, but it's not even, because rites of passage are very individual.
I only chuck that out as at least you indicate a movement from one place to another.
But, you know, yes, we have small groups of people that volunteer, but just recently the number of volunteers is just reducing and reducing. So we're losing more of that collective responsibility, yet in a natural disaster,
It all floods back in.
it all floods back in. So it is there just beneath the surface. And
Because it is our energy pattern. Do you think that the fear that we feel, I mean, I don't think it's too much of a stretch for anybody listening to this to start to acknowledge that the incumbent way of organising things leaves us with a residual sense of anxiety that perpetuates all the time. You know, whether it's paying bills, doing this.
I've got a little story about this. So back quite a few years ago, probably 25 years ago, I was in my final year at university and I had 3 or 4 things happen. You know, my father got cancer and died, my house got destroyed in a tornado, and my son got run over by a car. And we decided to actually sell up, and as a family we actually went back to nature, travelling around Australia. Everyone around us, the relationships, all said either you're running away, so they were making judgments about what we knew was right to do, but all the fear about getting left behind, or you've sold your house, what are you going to do? All of that. And yet, when we got on the road, within probably 2 days, our radio stopped working. And then our stereo stopped working. I was taking CD player around, and it was before mobile phones, right? So we travelled for 5.5 months and heard no news, right?
Yeah.
No outside communication giving us fear, right? We interacted with people in the most remote places in Australia, and people were kind and caring, you know, and it was only sometimes we'd go somewhere, oh, you didn't go to that town. That town's terrible. You could have got robbed, you could have got stabbed. It's like, well, we went there and it was really quite okay. And realised that there was no anxiety at all. And we came back, and I remember driving in, and the minute we met with family, we just got bombarded by all the things
noise.
all the noise. And my husband and I went, should we just turn around and keep going?
Yeah.
Like go back. And so, yeah, there's so many external things that create the fear that keeps us focused this way.
Yeah.
Fear of not having enough,
Yeah.
like whatever it is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that in and of itself becomes a central organising principle.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
and then the fear finds its way in there as well.
And then it winds in on people.
Yeah.
And yet, you know, you talked about life being as the central organising principle.
Yes.
Like life is a force of nature that flows through every one of us. But it's the love that connects us all.
Yes.
And yet love as a word has actually become contaminated.
So we were just talking a minute ago about, yes, having life as a central organising principle, but also it's the love that connects us as well.
Yes.
So having these things recognised and part of the organising structure.
Yes. And you know, we need a structure that encourages us to know our nature. We've talked a lot about that internal.
Yeah.
And yet, at the moment, so many of our structures encourage us to be outside of ourselves. And so we need, and I suppose it's all those things around us that I talked about when we were travelling, the media, the education, the government, the families, to actually, you know, somehow have the structure that encourages finding our nature, then finding our place. And we know that our first place is at the centre of our life. So if we have our life, we have to live at the centre of our own life. And lots of people put either other people in there, they might put fear, they might put money at the centre of their life, and that creates their pattern for life. But if we actually had structures that really, emphasise the importance of putting yourself at the centre of your life, and that's your place, then we'd actually find our place in this workplace or this collective or this group.
All these other spaces that
yes,
exist.
because we started this conversation with you saying we need safe places and we need safe places to explore. And then also knowing our purpose. You know, what are we here? And, you know, we often talk about we have a self-purpose, which is to grow.
Yep.
And, you know, we need structures that encourage that growth.
And then
But
to live.
a holistic growth, not just an information. Like what you were talking about, like you were encouraged to read all these books, but it wasn't integrated anywhere. And, you know, you were exposed to all these different ways of being, but no one encouraged you to go, which one serves you? Right?
Yeah.
So
And until when?
Yeah.
And that's another part of the conversation is we think, who are you? What do you want to be? What do you want to do? Right? But we don't follow on from that and say until when.
Yes. Yeah.
And we know that in our lifetime we have multiple career changes. We constantly change from being, you know, single and free to then being a parent, to then being a husband or a wife or a grandparent. No one talks about the transitions in our changes, right?
Yes.
And
Although
a lot of things are fixed.
Yeah, but they do in negative terms.
Yes.
In so
Yes.
many, so women going through menopause, it's the most horrible part of your life.
Or after having children, it's I need to get back to me. Well, no, because you've completely changed, and we naturally we evolve and we change. So rather, who am I evolving into? And this, and I feel part of the safe space that needs to happen in order for us to grow and evolve is the positive and safe space of changing those narratives, right? And not having a negative view on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but that sort of comes from that fear thing. Right? Whereas the love and acceptance of all people as they are is very different from the fear and judgment of who they could be.
Yep.
Right? So,
Yeah.
you know, and as you're saying that, like I'm looking at, you know, because our nature is to learn and grow in collective circular collaborations.
But also from the inside out.
And from the inside out. And so I'm sort of seeing, and it's probably, you know, a lot of the cities in Europe have this, I don't know, central area in each city, which is just a big open space. And like we've tried it in Australia and it doesn't really work because the structure isn't there for all that to happen.
Yeah.
And it has to happen organically. But I'm wondering whether, because now our cities are massive with millions of people rather than a smaller collective, and maybe we need these spaces for that to happen, but also to unlearn. Because at the moment, as you've probably all experienced, you've gone to join a group and the whole group is, I don't know, organising around fear and safety. And
It's contaminated.
It's, contaminated. And you might be really interested in doing what that group's doing,
Yeah.
but you're just like, ugh, I can't be around around them. So
I've written here, and I don't know if it's going to make sense, and it just, I don't know.
Chuck it in.
But I feel like part of the whole safe space, right, for things to naturally do what it's meant to do and be what it's meant to be, whether it's humanity or not, we have to have balance. Part of that balance is, where am I going with this? Oh, it wants to come and then it doesn't come. It's really interesting. So, you know, we talk about the integration of knowing, being, doing in relation to all of the moving parts in the ecosystem and blah, 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 right? And having balance in that way. When we're talking about humanity as a whole being out of balance, I don't think anyone can deny that.
yes,
You know, what does it take to get back to the caring nature or to consider the structures to enable care? I'm wondering, and what I've written down is, you know, does it require, or what does this look like, a critical mass of the part of the whole or parts of the whole? And just that linking it back to when we were talking about elders in the community or leaders who know
Yeah.
or to share the wisdom, that's the critical mass of parts of the whole,
Yes.
right? To then be able to discern when the balance isn't, whatever that looks like,
Yeah.
in, out. So as humanity as a whole, what do the few critical mass look like? What is that? Who is that? Where is that?
Yeah.
In, out, I don't know,
Yeah.
but something as a beacon to highlight the imbalance of
Yeah.
the whole.
Yeah, and I suppose, the only way, well, it's not the only way, but, I'm sure there's lots and lots of people out there in the world that are doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Creating these little collective circular collaborations and really having cleared up everything, they know their deep knowing.
And they're bringing it.
Up.
Yep.
And maybe we need a collective of those little collectives that are all around, because then as a larger collective, we might be able to allow or create a larger space for that to emerge. What is the structure look like? And it may look different in every place on the planet, but it may have some critical things that you just talked about. It may need some elders or people of wisdom. It may need some sort of path guidelines. And I know you've talked about what is the journey of man, as in men? What is the journey of women? And of course they're not all going to be the same. But in the terms of development of humanity, and we've talked about the responsibility. There'll be some universal themes, and there will be, there will be that theme which, we already have, the dependence when children are young, they're fully dependent. Then they move to independence. Then we move to interdependence, right? But there's one that we haven't really know about with the responsibility of being a human being on this planet.
So we've used the word safe a lot, right? You've used it, and throughout all this I've had like this with safe.
Yep.
And and then you've kind of asked about what could it look like, what could it be, this and how do I put this? For me, rather than safe, I like to think about trust, right? Because safe is, to me, is quite containing, whereas trust is quite expanding. And part of the energy pattern of humanity is engineering, right? So, how do I put this? For me to sit here and try and work out, what could it look like, is, for me, kind of a redundant thing and not something that I would put my mind to nowadays, because I know that humanity as the whole thing engineers things, and things will come together, and to sit and try and work out what that would be is taking away some of the glorious awe and mystery of it all, to allow it to unfold. So, but I think by placing life and love, things that balance, responsibility,
life,
and recognizing that we grow, and having these as our central organizing principles, because being carers, we do have to take responsibility. So let's put those things there and allow humanity as a whole to start bringing forwards the actual solutions and trusting that. So it's no longer a safe space to explore. It's I will explore, and I will get it right, and I will get it wrong. And I may say something in a space that pisses you two off, but I but we all have a level of trust. It's not about safe, it's a trust that it's like, you know, I know Bryn, I trust it, like we can, you know, and it's because there's been things in the past where it's like the countries that people most want to live in are the countries that have the highest trust rating amongst the staff, and we have trust in our cultural integrity audit.
Yeah.
Because if people feel trust, then they know that there's a sense that it will be all right, even if it gets sticky.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes for me, safe is almost like sticky stays at the doorway and doesn't come in. But you know, like we teach with the map. You know, life's like this, right?
Yeah.
And shit happens.
And what do people say after they've done a few workshops with us? We need to trust in the process.
Yes.
We trust in the process.
And the unfolding.
Yeah, but it's, you know, the process and practices, you know, to get to the centre of your life.
Yes.
The processes and practices to connect to your deepest knowing.
Yeah.
The processes and practicing to unearth your own energy pattern.
And then live by that.
Yes.
And then the process and practice is to see great structures in yourself. You know, like for me, the structures of boarding school, the structures of colonisation, the structures of all of that rise within me, because they are within me, and see them disintegrate.
Yeah.
And then I have trust in my own experience, because I've seen what happens outside, inside of me, rise and disintegrate.
Yeah, which, you know, comes back to the whole fractal nature of life.
Yes.
And you keep talking about inside and outside. And, you know, our mind is a fractal of the greater universe and stuff. And so you know, the possibility exists that this could transform very quickly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And as you were talking, I was, you know, thinking about how we structure our workshops to build trust, how we structure our interactions with people to build trust. And not just build trust, we live it.
Yeah. And one of the things that was coming to me is, you know, yes, we're talking about safe spaces, and I completely agree that it's actually trust as well. But one kind of doesn't go without the other. They're very interconnected, right? And so going back to when we run our workshops and we provide a safe space, we also are a safe person.
Yes.
Because we're safe in our being. So again, it's the in and out integrated, right?
Yes.
We're safe to ourselves, let alone everybody else.
Absolutely. And so, and we're not doing it, you know, for an ulterior motive. This is just what we do and what we've chosen to do, right? Going back to what does it look like around a mass of people, things, structures, whatever it is, to be able to communicate in some way or to measure, I don't know, they're terrible words.
But you know,
when an imbalance,
power is communication.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So I'm just keeping it open.
Yeah.
But to acknowledge an imbalance perhaps happening, because we also know that, what I feel like, yes, it can blow up and it can change and it can move very quickly, right? Evolve. Where are the points in which, whether it's looking at something change, right, before our eyes, or whether it's change over time, there are patterns that one must be able to look out for. Who looks out for those patterns? What looks out for those patterns? What are those things? That's what I was referring to. And then, so going back to when we do workshops, we provide a safe space for the person or people. We are a safe person. Also, whilst they're going through the workshop in the timeline, we are the beacon for when this workshop is going here or there or back in time. So all of that, my question was, what does that look like for in the future for humanity when we start reconnecting and going and looking at the structures for nurturing the caring nature of humanity?
Yeah.
Well, the answer would be for you exactly what you do in the workshop.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. See, and that's the beyond and the micro
And the way-
and the
and the way you
relationship
do
and
that.
the fractal, right?
And the way you do that.
Yeah.
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 And
It's the same way I will do that in the workshop.
Exactly.
Is I
Yeah.
now take it out
Yeah.
of the workshop and into the world.
And so it goes back to the, you know, the mass of the part represented in the whole.
Yeah.
But the whole is not all one and the same.
No.
If
Yeah,
I mean, does that make sense?
a little bit.
So yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway.
and I think what you're like saying is, yes, in the workshops we have this safe place, we have safe people, but then we also have, we understand when we're running a workshop, this is the pattern,
Yeah.
this is the energy pattern of this group, and every group is different, and we trust in ourselves to allow it to go where it needs to go.
Yeah, we trust the group.
We
to
trust the
emerge,
group, and
which is what I was
Yeah.
Yeah.
talking about here.
Yeah. But because we understand the energy pattern and the structure, we're
Yeah.
able to guide it back if need be.
yes,
And so I
when
guess
it goes out of balance,
yes, bringing it back into the energy pattern of humanity
yeah,
is caring. Perhaps that beacon or the structure is people who understand the energy pattern
yes,
of caring and humanity
Yes.
yeah,
in a way, or some
No.
form of it, right?
Yes.
Because like you say, there are people around the world doing what we're doing in their own way,
yes, and they
tapping
might not
into this fabric, this pattern,
the underlying deep knowing,
and they're communicating it in their own way. So
hu-
we have a language for this
Yeah. We do.
universally,
the
obviously.
collective
Yeah.
humanitarian, not humanitarian, that's wrong, the collective communication of humanity, and you know, this is where the communication may not be verbal because words have multiple meanings.
Yeah.
And so I suppose we need to find those beacons, and all around the world, a bit like a lighthouse, we have beacons that guide. And you know, then it's up to people to either disregard it or not.
Yeah.
So this will need to emerge over time. We don't have an answer for
course.
this,
We don't.
Yeah.
but we have some central organising principles.
And we have experience of allowing it to occur. The three of us do.
Yeah.
The workshop scenarios that we hold.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not just in workshops that we hold in the wider community, because all those people
Yeah.
go out into the community and the ripples
Yeah,
occur
of course.
like this,
Yeah.
and not everyone comes back in,
Yeah.
but the ripples go. And you know, how many times have people turned up 10 years later and gone, oh, this and this, you
Yeah.
said it last week.
Yeah. Yep.
You just bumped into someone that was 5 years ago, and they started living at the centre of their life,
Yeah.
which meant a lot of changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.